It's great to bring the NABA community together for the 12th annual summit with a full room. The continent finds itself at the intersection of some of the most important trends driving a world in flux. We believe that this represents an opportunity for Africa to redefine its role in world affairs.
The positioning in terms of a world in flux, I think it puts a greater spotlight on Africa in terms of its strategic importance.
I think the reality for Africa is less complex around geopolitics. And I think that as a business person, I like to focus on socioeconomic solutions.
How we think about investing in Africa is we look at the core business, the fundamentals. How will capital get repatriated and returned? Engagement with local partners, understanding incentives, and making sure you have the right partner engagement, particularly on the ground.
If we want to develop sustainable partnerships, then we have to localize knowledge, strategies, and finance. You cannot bring one form of solution from one part of the world to the other without taking into consideration how it would work in the long term.
The best place to look is just where there's gaps in terms of unmet needs. It's a massive market. The key thing is just making sure that the price points, that it's affordable for the businesses that are there. Oftentimes that's where we find where there's a disconnect.
There does need to be more at-risk capital, in particular from the official sources and development sources, for early stage transactions, stuff that can be more catalytic in terms of actually promoting private sector development.
Traditional form of funding will not work. The risks are apparent, but also are the opportunities. How do you structure finance in a way that mitigates this risk, but in a non-traditional way? I think the more we think outside of the box, the more we democratize funding.
There are some opportunities to really invest in the circular economy, lift up really entire value chains that are going to guarantee local food production, food security, local jobs.
There is a need for Africa to have its green growth story that's also about industrialization. And with the renewable energy resources that Africa could have, there is also that real potential for cheap energy, and that can drive real industrialization.
We have discussed possibilities and challenges for the mineral industry in Africa.
The development of the critical metals that are required for transition to green energy and also for the electric motor vehicle industry.
What we see now is a global shift towards electrification, which makes these resources very valuable and gives African position to be able to make maybe new kind of strategies in how to approach and create value.
I think for Africa, the first thing is framework. And part of that framework includes, for example, localizing beneficiation for your minerals, transferring manufacturing. Rather than manufacture in Germany with very expensive labor, why don't you do that in Africa?
Nations have typically made progress when they have access to either cheap labor or cheap energy. Africa has both.
I see Africa offering a lot more. Most of Africa now is literate and educated, so the labor is there, it's trainable, it's available to be applied into these industries that would be for the mutual benefit of all.
Take Ethiopia. We have 2 million people entering the job market every year. We need to create jobs for them, and we need to do that quickly.
NABA has always been the connector of people and ideas and thoughts in a very transparent way. No hidden agendas.
What NABA has done successfully is to open doors of communication, open sharing of information to demystify a lot of things.
NABA just as a facilitator of discussions, introductions, matchmaking between African corporates, African sovereigns, Norwegian corporates, Norwegian investors has already been tremendous for us.
The networking has been second to none as well. We've met some very interesting potential partners.
But all of this success story needs to be told. It needs to get to the common man on the street.